The galaxy had always known conflict, but this one felt different. It wasn't about territory or trade, it was about pride. Every species in the Galactic Federation wanted to prove their warriors were the strongest. To settle the argument, the Council created something monstrous, the War Beast. Built through a mix of alien genetics and machine enhancement, the War Beast was designed to be unbeatable. It would test every species' finest soldiers in an arena of honor. No weapons, no fleets, just strength, will, and instinct. Whoever could stand against the beast would earn eternal respect across the stars. One by one, the greatest warriors came. The reptilian Drakkar, whose scales could stop plasma. The winged Valari, who moved like lightning. The crystalline Vorn, whose bodies could reshape to block attacks. They all entered the ring. They all fell. The crowd watched in awe as the beast tore through champion after champion. It fought not with cruelty, but with purpose, as if it enjoyed the challenge. Its roar echoed through the metallic stadium, shaking the walls. The galaxy began to whisper, "No one can defeat it," until one day a name appeared on the roster that made everyone laugh. A human. Humans were new to the galactic stage. Small, fragile, not particularly strong. Their technology was centuries behind most races. The idea of one stepping into the arena against the War Beast seemed like a joke. Even the announcer hesitated before reading the name aloud. Next challenger, Human Cadet Elias Cade. When Elias walked into the arena, there was no armor, no weapon, no display of power. Just a calm young man in a dark training uniform, standing alone in a vast circle of light. The crowd jeered. Some laughed openly. Others looked away, expecting another quick death. The War Beast entered with a thunderous growl. Its massive frame shimmered under the light, dark metallic hide, molten eyes, claws sharp enough to carve steel. It towered over the human, each step shaking the ground. When it roared, even the alien guard stepped back. Elias didn't move. He stood still, his breathing slow. His eyes calm and steady never left the creature's face. The silence that followed was heavy, confusing. Every other warrior had charged or shouted or screamed. This human just watched. The beast circled him, curious. It was used to fear, to rage, to desperation. But this tiny being showed none of that. Its tail lashed once, testing. Still no reaction. Finally, it lunged. The crowd gasped as the War Beast's claws cut through air. But somehow, Elias wasn't there anymore. He'd moved at the last second, fluid and precise. The beast's attack hit empty ground. Sparks flew. The human rolled, came up steady, and locked eyes again. No fear, no anger. "Just focus!" The creature snarled, louder this time. It charged again, faster, heavier. Elias sidestepped, his movements small, efficient. Not flashy, not strong, controlled. He didn't fight with strength. He fought with understanding. Every step, every dodge, every glance was measured. From the stands, a Valari general whispered, "He's reading it." Indeed, Elias was watching, learning. Every muscle twitch, every breath of the beast told him something new. He didn't see a monster. He saw a pattern. Minutes passed. The beast grew frustrated. No opponent had lasted this long without striking. It roared again and slammed its claw into the ground, sending debris flying. A shard scraped Elias's cheek, drawing blood. He wiped it away, his eyes steady. Then something unexpected happened. The War Beast hesitated. It tilted its head slightly, studying him the way a predator studies another predator. The roar stopped. The air stilled. Elias took a slow step forward. The crowd held its breath. "You're tired," he said softly. His voice was calm, almost kind. "You don't want to fight anymore, do you?" The beast's breathing slowed. Its claws lowered. In the stands, confusion rippled through the audience. What was this? A trick? A human talking to a weapon? But Elias didn't stop. He walked closer, slowly, carefully. The massive creature loomed above him, muscles trembling, its golden eyes flickering with something strange. Recognition. Elias placed one hand on the beast's snout. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then, the War Beast exhaled, low and deep, like thunder softening into rain. And then, in front of the entire galaxy, it lowered its head. The crowd erupted, not with cheers, but stunned silence. The beast, undefeated across 100 worlds, bowed to a human. Up in the observation deck, the council members stared at their monitors, speechless. The experiment had ended, but not the way they expected. The war beast hadn't been beaten. It had submitted. Elias stood there, hand still resting on its head, breathing slowly. "Good," he murmured. "Now rest." The arena lights dimmed. The silence turned into whispers. And across the galaxy, one truth began to spread faster than light itself. The human didn't conquer the beast. He earned its respect, and that changed everything. The arena was silent long after the fight ended. Billions of eyes across the galaxy watched the recording again and again, as if trying to find the moment when everything changed. The war beast, undefeated, unstoppable, bowed to a human. It wasn't weakness. It was recognition. Something in that moment shook every species watching. Because if the galaxy's most perfect predator could submit to a fragile human, what else had they all misunderstood about humanity? Elias Cade didn't celebrate. He didn't even stay for the ceremony that followed, while the rest of the crowd erupted into chaos. News drones swarming, reporters screaming, soldiers whispering. He simply walked out of the arena, silent, his uniform still dusty, the mark from the beast's strike faintly visible on his cheek. Backstage, a dozen officials ran toward him. "Cadet Cade, you'll be honored before the council. How did you do it?" He didn't answer any of them. His only words were, "I want to see it." The war beast had been moved to the containment bay, surrounded by a dozen energy barriers and guarded by troops from 5 different races. Even chained and weakened, its presence filled the massive hangar. Its breathing was deep and steady, like an ancient engine. When Elias stepped inside, the guard stiffened. "You shouldn't be here, human," one of them warned. Elias ignored them and walked closer. The air shimmered with energy from the containment field, and for a moment, the creature's eyes opened, gold, sharp, alive. "It remembers you," whispered one of the alien officers. Elias stopped a few meters away. "You didn't want to fight," he said softly. "They made you do it." The beast's breathing grew faster. Its claws flexed against the floor. Elias didn't move, didn't flinch. He just looked into those burning eyes the same way he had in the arena, without fear. And then, impossibly, the war beast lowered its head again. The guards stepped back, weapons half raised. "What's it doing?" one of them hissed. Elias only smiled faintly. "It's listening." He took one more step just outside the barrier. The field crackled, glowing blue. "You were never meant to destroy," he whispered. "You were meant to protect." "You just forgot." The war beast rumbled low, a sound like distant thunder. Its eyes flickered once, and then dimmed, as if it understood. Far away, in the upper chambers of the Galactic Council, chaos erupted. The representatives of 100 worlds shouted over one another, "This is impossible! It must be a trick. No creature submits willingly." Only one figure, the elder alien known as High Chancellor Vereen, remained calm. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "it is not the beast that is strange. Perhaps it is the human." A murmur ran through the room. "They fought with nothing but stillness," he continued. "No rage, no fear, no hunger for victory." The beast saw something it had never seen before. Restraint. The chamber fell quiet. The words restraint and human had never existed in the same sentence before. Back in the containment bay, Elias sat cross-legged on the cold floor. The beast lay behind the barrier, massive and silent. Between them, the hum of energy pulsed softly like a heartbeat. "You weren't born to be a weapon," Elias said quietly. "Someone made you believe that's all you were." For a moment, nothing moved. Then, to his shock, the creature shifted, its clawed hand dragging lightly across the floor. Lines appeared in the dust, almost deliberate. Elias leaned closer. It was writing, crude, simple symbols, but clear enough to understand. "One word. Why?" Elias's throat tightened. "Because they were afraid," he said softly. "And fear builds monsters." The war beast's head lowered again, eyes glowing faintly. From behind him, a voice said, "You're talking to it?" Elias turned to see Dr. Lyra Toven, one of the alien xenobiologists overseeing the project. Her blue eyes were wide with disbelief. "It can't understand language." "Maybe not your kind," Elias said, standing slowly. "But it understands tone, emotion, intention. You don't need words to feel truth." She stared at the creature, then back at him. "You've changed something in it." Elias shook his head. "No, it changed itself. I just gave it a reason." That night, the galaxy didn't sleep. Every news channel ran the footage. Every forum burned with debate. Was it evolution? Telepathy? Some secret human trick? On a quiet planet far from the Council's reach, in a smoky bar filled with soldiers, an old Drakkar veteran muttered, "That's why they scare me, these humans. They don't win because they're strong. They win because they care." Days later, the Council made a decision that stunned the galaxy again. The war beast would no longer be used for combat. Instead, it would serve as a protector, a living guardian of peace under the Federation banner, and the one to train it? Elias Cade. When they told him, he didn't answer right away. He just looked out through the viewport at the stars, thinking of the beast's golden eyes and the word it had written in the dust. He whispered to himself, "Maybe it's time someone taught the galaxy how to stop fighting." As the ship prepared to leave orbit, the war beast raised its head, following the human with its gaze. Somewhere deep in its chest, it made a sound, not a growl, not a roar, but something softer, almost like a promise. And in that quiet, between two hearts that should have never understood each other, something ancient and new was born: trust. The war beast's transport ship cut through the void like a silent blade. Inside its cargo hold, the creature slept, calm for the first time in its creation. Around it, guards kept a nervous distance, though the human walking beside it seemed completely unbothered. Elias Cade carried no weapon, no armor, only a small data pad filled with notes and questions. He wasn't here as a warrior now. The Council had named him something new: Handler of the War Beast, though in truth he didn't think of himself as that. He wasn't training it to obey. He was trying to help it understand. Dr. Lyra Toven watched him with disbelief. "You walk beside it as if it's a pet," she said, her long fingers clutching a scanner. "Do you have any idea how dangerous that thing is?" Elias didn't look up. "Dangerous doesn't mean evil. Tell that to the 20 species it slaughtered during the trials." He glanced back at her, calm as ever. "It didn't slaughter them. It followed orders." Lyra exhaled, shaking her head. "Humans, you see mercy where everyone else sees a monster." Elias smiled faintly. "Maybe that's why we survive so well." The beast stirred at his voice. Its golden eyes flickered open, then softened when they found him. Around them, the guards flinched, but the creature didn't move. It simply rumbled low, a sound closer to a sigh than a growl. Elias took a step closer. "You're safe," he said quietly. The words echoed in the cargo bay. Simple words, but they carried weight. The war beast's breathing slowed again, calm. When the ship landed on the remote moon of Kalar Prime, the air shimmered with dust and light. The training facility had been built for one purpose: to help the galaxy's most dangerous creature learn peace. The first lesson began the next morning. Elias stood in the center of the wide training arena. The war beast waited across from him, its head tilted slightly, eyes sharp but patient. "Lesson 1, Elias said. "No commands, just understanding." He raised one hand. The beast mimicked the motion with one clawed paw. The gesture was rough, clumsy, but it tried. That was enough. Watching from the observation deck, Dr. Lyra whispered to another researcher, "It's copying him." "Yes," the other alien murmured. "It's learning." For hours, Elias spoke softly to the creature, teaching through tone, movement, and rhythm. He showed it calm gestures, open palms, slow breathing, lowered posture. Every time the beast responded, he praised it. Every time it hesitated, he waited. By the end of the day, something astonishing happened. The war beast bowed its head again, not as submission, but as acknowledgement. "Good," Elias said, smiling. "You remember?" The beast rumbled softly, the sound low and warm. Lyra stared, stunned. He's communicating with it. No, corrected the alien beside her. He's connecting with it, word spread fast. Every major species sent representatives to witness the sessions. They came expecting to see a human performing tricks. What they saw instead unsettled them more than any battle ever had. A human teaching peace to a creature born for war, a predator showing gentleness, a monster learning trust. The council debated endlessly. Some feared it. Others saw potential. One general said, "If a beast like that can be tamed, imagine what else can be controlled." But Elias wasn't taming it. He was changing it, and being changed in return. Weeks passed. One afternoon, while the galaxy still argued, Elias sat on the arena floor beside the sleeping creature. He looked up at the glowing sky, thoughtful. "You were made to fight," he said quietly. "But maybe that's not what strength really is. Maybe it's knowing when not to." The war beast's eyes flickered open. It studied him in silence, then lowered its massive head beside him, so close he could feel the heat from its breath. "Yeah," Elias whispered, smiling faintly. "I think you understand." Then came the first real test. A squad of new Federation soldiers was brought to the moon to observe the progress. One of them, a towering Drakkar lieutenant, scoffed loudly. "So this is what made our champions fall? It looks tame now. I'd like to see it fight again." Elias stood, calm but firm. "That's not what we're here for." But the soldier ignored him, activating a pulse blade. "You call this peacekeeping? It's a weapon, nothing more." He stepped toward the beast, blade humming. The creature rose, slow and cautious, sensing aggression. Its eyes flared gold. Elias moved between them. "Stop," he said sharply. The soldier hesitated. "You'll get yourself killed, human." Elias didn't back down. "If you attack it, you'll prove that you're the monster, not it," the Drakkar snarled. "It's a beast!" "Then why is it waiting and you're not?" That one question froze everyone in place. The war beast lowered its head slightly, muscles tense but unmoving. It was waiting. For permission. For calm. Elias turned slowly, placing a hand on the beast's snout. The creature closed its eyes. The air grew still. "You see?" Elias said softly. "It learned peace faster than we did." The Drakkar's blade dimmed. No one spoke after that. Later that night, Dr. Lyra found Elias staring out at the stars. "You risked your life," she said quietly. He shook his head. "No, I trusted it. And it trusted me. You really believe this can work?" Elias looked toward the sleeping creature, a faint smile on his face. "It already is." Above them, unseen by either of them, a fleet moved silently through deep space. Predator ships of a forgotten race, watching, waiting. Not everyone in the galaxy was ready for peace, but for now, on a lonely moon where a monster and a man had learned to understand each other. The galaxy's greatest lesson was being written, that sometimes strength doesn't roar, it listens. The peace on Kalar Prime didn't last long. Rumors began to spread through the Federation. Dark whispers carried by freighters and intercepted signals. Someone was moving ships along the border worlds. Old warlords, bitter commanders, species who had lost glory when the war beast stopped fighting. They wanted revenge. They called themselves the Shadow Fleet. They didn't care about peace. They wanted the beast back the way it was, feared, brutal, unstoppable. Inside the training compound, Elias Cade had no idea that danger was closing in. He spent his days beside the creature, teaching it new ways to communicate. The beast had started to mimic certain sounds, deep, rumbling versions of human syllables. It could almost say his name. That morning, it tried again. "Elias," it growled softly. Elias smiled. "Close enough." He tossed it a large metal sphere. "Now, catch!" The war beast caught it gently with one clawed hand, holding it as if afraid to crush it. Its control had become remarkable. Lyra Tovan watched from the edge of the arena, arms folded, awe hidden behind her usual frown. "You've turned a weapon into a student," she said. Elias glanced at her. "Maybe it was never a weapon to begin with." Lyra shook her head. "You sound like someone who believes monsters don't exist." He looked at the creature. "I think monsters are made, not born." That night, The stars over Kalar flickered strangely. Dr. Lyra was the first to notice the disruption on the orbital sensors. She tapped the console and frowned. That's not a meteor cluster. By the time she called Elias to the control room, the readings were clear. 12 unidentified ships, stealth systems barely masking their signatures. The insignia on the hulls was unmistakable. Old Federation warships, but with modified engines and darker paint. "They're jamming communication," Lyra said quietly. "Someone doesn't want this base talking to the Council." Elias's eyes narrowed. The Shadow Fleet. He didn't have to guess why they were here. The war beast had humiliated too many powerful people. To them, peace was a weakness that needed to be erased. "Evacuate the staff," Elias ordered. "Get everyone to the lower hangars. What about you?" Lyra asked. "I'm not leaving it." She knew it meant the creature. By the time the enemy ships entered the atmosphere, the night sky burned orange. Dropships landed outside the compound, scattering dust and heat. Soldiers in black armor poured out, moving with mechanical precision. Elias ran to the arena. The war beast was already awake, its golden eyes glowing in the dark. It could sense danger. "Listen to me," Elias said, standing before it. "You can't fight them." "Not unless there's no other way," the beast rumbled low. "Mans?" "No," he said softly. "Not your kind, not mine. Just people who forgot what peace means." The first explosion hit the outer wall. Dust rained from above. The creature roared, a sound that made the floor shake. Elias stepped forward, resting a hand against its leg. "You saved the galaxy once. You don't have to destroy it again." For a moment, the war beast hesitated. Then it lowered its body, as if offering him its back. Elias blinked. "You want me to ride?" The creature huffed impatiently. He climbed up carefully, gripping the thick scales near its shoulder. "All right," he muttered. "Let's do this together." Outside, the base was chaos. Fire lit the horizon. Enemy soldiers advanced through the smoke, shouting orders in a dozen alien tongues. Then the ground trembled. The war beast burst through the wall, a silhouette of fury and grace, glowing eyes cutting through the dust. The soldiers froze. For years, they had dreamed of recapturing it. Now, faced with the real thing, their courage faltered. Elias raised his voice through the comms. "Stand down! You're attacking the creature that ended the war. You think violence will make you stronger?" No one listened. Plasma fire ripped through the air. The war beast shielded him with one massive arm, the blasts bouncing harmlessly off its hide. Then, instead of charging, it did something unexpected. It roared, not in anger but in warning. The sound rolled across the desert like thunder, so deep it shook the ships themselves. It wasn't attacking. It was telling them to stop. Some soldiers hesitated. Others didn't. Another explosion erupted nearby. Elias clenched his teeth. "Don't fight," he whispered. "They're scared." That's all. The beast turned its head slightly, its eyes catching his. In that moment, Elias could almost feel what it was thinking. Fear can't be reasoned with. The creature moved, not to kill, but to protect. It leapt between the soldiers and the base, using its massive frame as a shield. Plasma bolts scorched its hide, but it didn't retaliate. Watching from the command deck, Lyra whispered, "It's taking the fire for us." Hours passed before the Council fleet finally arrived. By then, the Shadow Fleet's ships were in retreat, their leaders broadcasting excuses and denials. The war beast collapsed near the ruined arena, exhausted but alive. Elias jumped down and ran to its side. "You did it," he said, voice trembling. "You kept your promise." The creature's golden eyes blinked slowly. "Safe?" it rumbled. He nodded. "Yeah, safe." It closed its eyes, finally at peace. Later, when the fires died and the Council medics filled the base, Lyra approached Elias. "They'll make you a hero again," she said. "The man who stopped another war." He shook his head. "No, it did," she smiled faintly. "You really believe it thinks like us, don't you?" Elias looked toward the sleeping creature. "No, I think it feels more than we do." Above them, the stars were clear again. But somewhere in the dark, the remnants of the Shadow Fleet drifted away, wounded, furious, and plotting. Because peace, as Elias was learning, never stayed safe for long. 3 solar cycles passed after the attack on Kalar Prime, and the galaxy's calm felt artificial, like the silence after thunder. The war beast, now simply called Kyle by Elias, was recovering in a reinforced medical bay on the council station. Its wounds were deep but healing fast. Every heartbeat of that creature was proof of something the galaxy didn't know how to handle, that mercy could outlive violence. But not everyone celebrated. Across the Federation, debates raged. Some called Kale a symbol of peace. Others called it a weapon too dangerous to exist. And in the marble halls of the Galactic Council, the most powerful voices of 100 worlds clashed. "It disobeyed orders," shouted a reptilian senator from the Drakkar Dominion. "That thing chose when to fight and when to stop. It thinks for itself. What happens when it decides we're the threat?" Another delegate hissed in reply. "It protected civilians. Without it, the Shadow Fleet would have slaughtered everyone on Kalar Prime." The chamber broke into chaos again. At the center table sat Commander Etta Voss, head of the human delegation. Her tone was steady, but her eyes showed exhaustion. Cal prevented a massacre. It acted on moral instinct, something most of us have forgotten. If that's dangerous, then maybe the problem isn't the creature. Her words echoed, but the tension didn't fade. Fear had deep roots in the galaxy. Elias stood on the observation deck above the council chamber, listening to the argument through the glass. Lyra Tovan stood beside him, arms folded, her expression unreadable. "They're not debating Kale," she said quietly. "They're debating us." He turned toward her. "Humans?" She nodded. Your kind. You taught the galaxy's greatest weapon to question orders, to feel empathy. That terrifies them." Elias stared down at the council floor. "Maybe it should." Later that night, he visited Kale in the med bay. The creature lay still beneath low lights, a massive form of shadow and metal and scarred flesh. When Elias entered, one golden eye opened. "Still alive," Elias said softly. "You're getting better at that." The beast made a sound like a quiet laugh, low and rumbling. He sat down beside it. "They don't know what to do with you. Some want to destroy you. Some want to control you. And some think you're proof that peace is just another weapon." Kale blinked slowly. "Peace weapon?" It repeated, voice gravelly but clear. Elias smiled faintly. "Yeah, to them everything is a weapon if it scares someone enough." The creature was silent for a moment, then said, "Fear makes war." Elias nodded. "And courage ends it." For a while, they just sat there, man and monster, student and teacher. The next day, the council summoned Elias to testify. The chamber was packed. Cameras hovered in the air, broadcasting the event to half the galaxy. Every race, every leader wanted to hear what the human who tamed the war beast would say. Elias stepped up to the platform, his posture straight, his voice calm. "You created Kale to destroy your enemies, but when it learned compassion, you called it dangerous. Isn't that what every species here does? We build things to kill and then fear them when they learn to feel." The Drakkar senator growled, "You presume too much, human." "No," Elias said simply. "I've just seen too much," the room murmured. The human commander leaned forward. "Tell them what you told me, Cade, about the difference between control and trust." Elias looked out over the crowd. "Control is fear dressed as safety. Trust is courage dressed as faith. Kale didn't bow to me because it was programmed to. It bowed because it chose to. That choice is the only real peace this galaxy's ever seen." The silence that followed was heavier than applause. Even the reporters didn't move. Then quietly, the High Chancellor of the Council spoke. "And what do you suggest we do with it?" Elias hesitated. "Let it live. Let it decide who it wants to be." That answer was too simple for politics. Within hours, factions began to form. The Peace Coalition supported Elias's view, seeing Kale as proof of moral evolution. The Security League demanded its termination, and the Shadow Fleet, though scattered, started recruiting again, whispering that humans had turned the galaxy's strongest weapon into a traitor. Dr. Lyra found Elias later that night. "Standing beside the viewport overlooking the stars. They're going to vote," she said. "If the Security League wins, Kale will be destroyed tomorrow." Elias didn't move. "Then I won't let that happen." "You can't stop the council." "I don't have to," he said. Kyle will. She stared at him, confused. You're not seriously... He looked at her, and there was a calm fire in his eyes. It's time they hear from the one they're afraid of. The next morning, as the council gathered for its final decision, the ground shook. The medbay's reinforced doors opened, and Kyle stepped into the chamber, moving slowly, silently. The guards froze. No one dared fire. Elias walked beside it. The sight was impossible. A man and a creature once called a god of war, walking as equals. Kale stopped in the center of the chamber. Its voice rumbled through the walls. No more fear. No more control. I fight no one. I protect all. The High Chancellor stood, eyes wide. You can speak? Kale's head lowered. I learned. The chamber erupted. Some shouted in horror. Others wept. And in that chaos, the galaxy realized something terrible and beautiful at once. The war beast had become alive, not in body, but in soul. For the first time in the long history of the Galactic Council, no one spoke. 1,000 voices from 1,000 worlds, all silent, watching the creature they once called a weapon stand tall and conscious before them. The war beast Kale no longer looked like a monster. Its golden eyes weren't burning with rage, but glowing with understanding. Elias Cade stood beside it, small in size, but unshakable in presence. Every camera in the chamber turned toward him. He didn't speak first. He wanted them to see Kale speak for itself. I know what you made me for, Kale said slowly. Its deep voice vibrated through the hall like thunder caught in a whisper. You built me to fight, to kill, to prove who was strong. But you forgot the truth. Strength means nothing without purpose. The words echoed off marble walls and steel rafters. Some delegates flinched, as though the sound alone carried weight. Kyle turned its head toward the council floor. I learned something from the human, it said. That peace is harder than war. That mercy costs more than victory. That a bowed head does not mean defeat, it means understanding. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Cameras flashed. One by one, the delegates rose from their seats, not in outrage this time, but in awe. Elias stepped forward. Kyle is right, he said softly. You wanted control, but what you got was conscience. You wanted a weapon, but you created a guardian. And you're too afraid to admit that it's better than any of us. The Drakkar senator slammed a fist on his desk. You can't trust it. Today it speaks. Tomorrow it will turn. Kale lowered its head slightly, calm and measured. I already turned, away from hate. The hall fell quiet again. High Chancellor Vareen leaned forward, his voice trembling. Then what do you want, Kale? The creature's eyes softened. Freedom to live, to protect, not by command but by choice. That word, choice, hung in the air like a challenge. The council's vote took hours. Outside, the station's corridors filled with civilians, soldiers, and reporters waiting for an answer. Across the galaxy, entire worlds tuned in, waiting to see whether the Federation would destroy its greatest creation or let it live as something more. Inside, Elias sat alone beside Kale. The creature's breathing was slow, steady. If they say no, Kale said quietly, will you run? Elias shook his head. Running isn't peace. It's fear, Kyle rumbled softly. Then we face it together. The chamber doors opened. Commander Voss entered, her face unreadable. They've made their decision, she said. Elias stood. Kale rose behind him, massive and silent. The council recognizes Kale as a sentient being, Voss said slowly. It will not be destroyed. Or controlled. Elias exhaled, relief trembling in his chest. Voss continued. But it will not remain here. Kale is exiled beyond Federation borders, free to go but never to return. Kale tilted its head. Freedom with a leash, it said quietly. Elias looked at Voss. That's not justice. It's compromise, she said. And compromise is the only thing that keeps the galaxy from burning. He wanted to argue, but Kale touched him gently with one claw. It's enough, the creature murmured. 2 days later, the hangar was ready. A transport ship stood waiting, massive, elegant, built for one. The send-off was quiet. No cameras, No audience. Just a few people who understood what they were losing. Lyra Tovan handed Elias a data crystal. "Every lesson, every record of your sessions," she said. "The galaxy will need them one day." He smiled faintly. "I hope they rid it before they make another mistake." Kyle crouched beside the ship, its scales catching the pale light. "You will stay?" it asked. Elias nodded. "Someone has to remind them why you bowed." The creature's eyes gleamed. "Then I will remind the stars." Elias placed a hand against its snout, the same way he had in that first arena so long ago. "Goodbye, old friend." Kale bowed again, lower, slower, deeper than before. Not because of command or respect, but something far greater. Gratitude. Then it rose and stepped onto the ship. Engines ignited, lighting the hangar in gold. The ship lifted, drifting silently toward the black beyond. Elias watched until it was nothing but a streak of light. "Good journey," he whispered. Years later, the galaxy would tell stories. Children on distant worlds would play games called the Human and the Beast. Monuments would rise, some of metal, others of memory. And when soldiers stood at the edge of war, they would remember the tale of the creature that could not be conquered. Because it learned compassion. Somewhere beyond the mapped stars, Kale wandered, guarding worlds too small for anyone to notice. It never forgot the human who taught it peace, and back on Earth, Elias Cade grew older, still speaking to the Council, still reminding them again and again that real strength is not in power, but in the choice to show mercy. Because once, in a galaxy ruled by fear, a beast had bowed to a human, and the stars themselves had watched.